Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of the Nerds Without Pants podcast. I'm very excited to finally be bringing this to you. I am your host, Julian, but I am also an elven Dark Knight from the realm of Sandoria. I'm joined by two beautiful, talented, charming, and somewhat snarky women. I have to my left Shanna, who is also a Mithra paladin from the realm of Windurst.
Hello.
And from far away, we have Allison, who is also a Mithra, and she is a jack of all trades, but when we met her, she was a red mage.
Hello.
And also kind of from all over, because you've changed nations so many times.
Yeah, I think I've done every single nation, so.
So, we're doing this for a bunch of different reasons. I just finished my big Final Fantasy retrospective for Pixelbit, and that was a big deal. But beyond that, March is actually going to be the 10th year that I've been playing Final Fantasy XI. And we're kind of here to talk about, MMORPGs, but the three of us are from, the Final Fantasy realm of the MMORPG, and it's also very topical because Allison was lucky enough to get into the alpha test for Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, which is the big, pretty much from the ground up redesign of Final Fantasy XIV, which didn't perform up to expectations when it launched a couple years ago. So we're going to get all that information from her later on. But before we get into that, I think MMOs are kind of an interesting animal, and I think people who don't play them often wonder what the deal is with them, but don't necessarily want to play them themselves. So I thought this first part of the show would be interesting to kind of get everybody's perspective on how they got into them and why they still play them. So I guess I will kick it off because I think I'm the oldest here as far as playing this game. Before Final Fantasy XI came out, when it was announced, I was really pissed off because I was, a 22-year-old, rage gamer who was like, oh, I don't want an online-only game to be the next Final Fantasy. That's bullcrap. I'm just going to skip it and boycott it. And I was fully intending to. I didn't like anything that I'd seen of the game. I thought it looked very brown and pale and green, and the Taru class, or the race rather, kind of reminded me of a cross between an Ewok and a Pikachu.
If you live in Babcock, it is brown.
Yeah, it's pretty brown.
The noses are weird.
Yeah. I mean, it just nothing about what I saw on it jumped out to me at all. And then I don't know. I guess because I love Final Fantasy and everything. And as the game was getting closer to the PS2 launch, I started hanging out on forums for the US PC game because the PC version came out earlier. And just started reading what people were doing and everything, and it started to sound kind of cool. And the more I started reading about it, the more I started to get to know these people on this particular forum. I don't even remember what the forum name was anymore. It's been so many years. But it just sounded like this kind of thing that I wanted to be a part of. And I've never been a PC gamer, so I actually had to make the huge PS2 investment, which meant the $44.99 network adapter, the $99 Final Fantasy XI bundle with the hard drive, and of course, the $12.95 monthly fee, subscription fee rather. And I went ahead and plunked all that down, and I had actually found a link shell, which for those not initiated is kind of the Final Fantasy version of a guild. I found one of those on through the forums, and I was going to join the Seraph server. And I actually got someone to invite me to that particular server and jumped in. And, when the game started, I didn't realize how big of a game it was. So I just started asking around, like, for these people that I met on the forums, thinking, oh, well, you know this guy, right? Like, there's only like a couple hundred of you, right? Not knowing that there were thousands of people playing on this server. So it took a little bit to get up to speed and everything. But I just, was blown away by the scope of the game, and I actually had taken off a few days for vacation, like when the game launched. So I had like a good 4 straight uninterrupted days of just Final Fantasy XI until the wee hours of the morning, and then sleep in, and then just go back at it. And it was just a lot of fun. And unfortunately, some things happened, and I couldn't stick with the game as long. I lost my job and just kind of didn't stick with it. And by the time that I decided to go back to it, most of my friends had gotten way far ahead of me level wise, and I just couldn't really play with them anymore. But I really wanted to get back into the game, and I decided that the best way to do that would be to recruit an actual friend to play with, side by side. Because I felt that if I could level with somebody where we were just okay, we're going to level these jobs together all the time, that I'd stick with it longer. And that's where Shanna came in, because I corrupted her. So you want to talk about how I got you into this sordid little world?
Well, I remember the first time I saw Final Fantasy XI, I'd gone over to your house, and you were showing me fishing, of all the boring things in Final Fantasy to do.
How'd you do that?
I don't know why. Yeah, that okay. I don't remember that being the first thing, but
no, it was the first thing. And I thought, oh my god, that's so cool, because I'd never seen anybody do that online, and the graphics were really neat. And I just really thought it was neat, and I knew it was something I wanted to play eventually. And I loved Final Fantasy. I'd beat Final Fantasy VII, and absolutely adore Final Fantasy IX. And just strangely enough, after I lost my job, you gave me your PS2, because I think that's when it came out on the Xbox, isn't it?
Yeah. I was upgrading to the Xbox 360 version, and I thought that was a perfect excuse to get you involved. And I even paid for your subscription for a while, because I really wanted you to play this with me.
And I got lost in Windurst for a good 4 hours, because I couldn't figure out that there were maps, and I didn't know how to read the maps. And when I didn't really say boo to anybody, because I was really extremely shy. And well, yeah, that was pretty much it. And I just waited for Julian to get there and show me the ropes, and he got me into a link shell, and it kind of took off from there. And I'm going on 8 years now.
Wow, yeah. What do you remember? Oh, that's right. We actually ended up in a link shell. Our first link shell when she started playing was mostly comprised of Koreans. Or no, they were in Singapore, and so they were almost never online. We happened to meet them just by random happenstance, and they let us join. And then we kind of never saw them again, because they were always asleep when we were playing, and vice versa. I
got to learn how to use auto-translate extremely fast.
Yeah, which is one of the great things about Final Fantasy XI is it has that really nice auto-translate feature, which I think is still kind of a unique thing to that game. Most MMOs, if you speak a different language, you're probably on a different server than everybody else. But so we played together for quite some time. And I'm notorious for leaving the game and coming back, and leaving and coming back, mainly because I go to play other games or I get sidetracked with other things. But Shanna had continued to play. She's pretty much You haven't stopped. Like, you've gone straight, like, the 8 years. Like, my 10 years is, sporadic at best.
The only time I have probably ever taken a long break from the game is when I'd go home to visit my mom.
So she'd been around for, continuing to play and everything, and I jumped back in really hardcore. I think it was over vacation. And she had joined a new link shell called the HQ Kings, which stands for high quality. It was a crafting guild, or crafting link shell. And I remember distinctly, we got into a party. It was me, Shanna, and then two characters that were in the same link shell. One was you, Allison, and one was Ethicant. And at the time, I thought that Ethicant was probably about 14 years old, and I thought you were about our age. And then I found out that Ethicant was almost 50, and you were 16. And it just completely, put my world topsy-turvy, and I think I had said some things to you just in the flirty way that I do, that I was like, I am taking all of that back. I am sorry.
Yeah, you were so worried about it. I didn't care.
Yeah, I know. But,
it was nice, but I wasn't going to, report you to any authority. So.
Yeah, but I didn't know that at the time. We were still getting to know each other. But yeah, so that's kind of where you come in, because I know you've been playing already, but I don't think, I think we haven't talked really about how you actually got into it and why.
So I think I started in April, I think it was 2006, it might have been 2007, I don't remember. But the big reason I got into it is because one of my real-life friends, whose name is Imara, started playing on Seraph server, and she had been into it for, I guess, 5 years previously, but I'd never known about it. And I went over to her house one day, and she was playing around in, I guess it was East Serta or something like that, and I thought, oh, this is cool. So she wanted me to do it with her, so I went out and I bought the disc, and almost cracked it in half 3 times, waiting the 16 hours for it to download. And I guess that's kind of how it all began. I don't actually remember how I got into HQ Kings. It was through Josiah somehow, but apparently I ended up partying with you guys, and then that took off.
Weren't you there the night Joss made that link shell?
Yeah, he made it. I mean, he was the only crafter in that crafting link shell.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we really hit it off, pretty quickly. I know that I was really happy because we got into a party with you, pretty quickly after that first one, and we were just like, oh, yay! She's on, she's so cool, and, we definitely have always enjoyed talking to you and everything, and, I think, we'll get into that a little later as far as, the community and stuff like that, but, we've kind of discussed how we got into it, but I'm also curious as to why we stuck with it so long. I know, Allison, you don't really play 11 anymore because you moved on to 14. Me and Shanna still play 11, but, for those who don't know, or those who've just heard about it tangentially, Final Fantasy XI is a tough game. It's easier now, but I remember when I first started, they just kind of toss you into the world, and they give you a coupon that, the only thing they teach you how to do is how to trade items. And you trade this coupon in for 50 gil, which doesn't buy anything in Final Fantasy XI.
Yeah, I remember that. They
yeah.
give you an opening cutscene that's like, welcome to this world, you're an adventurer, and then they plop you in the middle of your city-state, and they give you this trade-in coupon. You don't know how to do anything. You don't even know how to move. So I literally sat there for 10 minutes trying to figure out which keys made my character move.
Oh yeah, they don't give you any help. I think you even start with your equipment isn't equipped, so you don't have your weapon on you. And I think if you're a mage, like a white mage or something, you have a scroll for a spell, but you actually have to know to go into your inventory to use the scroll to learn the spell. So
yeah, they give you cure if you're a white mage, and I don't remember the black mage one, but they give you your your race specific armor. The beginning one is already equipped, and you have a ring, and you have a scroll or something else, a beginner. Do you even have a weapon for some of the classes?
Most of the classes you do. I know Monk, you don't have a weapon, but you do have the white belt, which is a pretty handy item. But yeah, it's literally just hey, you're here. This is Vana'diel. Go have fun. And that's how it was, for years. They've made it easier now where if you start a new character these days, right before you leave town, somebody stops you and says, "Hey, why don't you come learn the basics?" And you can opt out of it, I think, but it's to your benefit to do it now because you actually get an experience boost ring and you get like some food and you learn how to craft, and it kind of teaches you how to go check enemies and make sure they're not too strong for you and stuff like that. So it's really nice now, but, this was like unheard of, back in 2003, 2004, and even when you started, Allison. But yeah, so considering that it's like such a ball-breaking game, which is probably a bad use of words considering the company, like, what about it, like, kept you going? I guess I'll start with you, Allison, and then we'll move on to Shanna, because I'm just curious about why you played it for so long before finally moving on to 14.
Well, in the beginning, it was kind of more like wanting to catch up to my friend who had been playing for 5 years but was only like level 30. So, I mean, that's what kind of kept me powering through Balcom Jones, which was hell on Earth, or hell in Vana'diel, whatever. And then after I got to 30, she kind of stopped playing, but then I had already met you guys. So, I mean, mostly the people kept me playing, and then after you get a little more high level, you get into the storyline, so that's also kind of fun to play through. But that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and that's something that I think people don't know about Final Fantasy XI is that it still has just as strong of a story as the other games. You just have to know where to find it because, again, like when you first start playing that game, you don't really necessarily know that missions are where the meat of the story is and how to find them and how to complete them. But yeah, like you said, like once you get deep into that stuff, it gets really good and the cutscenes are really awesome. They actually have a really large selection of characters that you get to interact with and stuff like that as you play through. Shanna, how about you? Like I know, like we said, you've really never had a pause in your time with it. So what keeps you going?
I guess the people I've met online. That's what actually keeps me going. It's just fun to hang with them. You get to know them, and you're off running around doing stuff, and it's fun.
Yeah.
So many inside jokes with everybody. It's funny because I have all these like jokes with people that are online, and I'll go and I'll want to tell my friends in real life, and they'll have no idea what I'm talking about, and I feel like such a nerd. But
so yeah, I think definitely from listening to the three of us talking about why we still play this and everything, like one thing comes through like crystal clear, and that's the community for this particular game, and I think that's what for me, that's the biggest draw of the whole MMO thing is the community and getting to know people from all walks of life, all places in the world, and kind of coming together for this, this goal of playing, this dumb fantasy game together.
It's not dumb.
Oh, I'm just.
it's not dumb.
But no, like, that's something that I think, especially Final Fantasy XI, and possibly 14 does better than a lot of games that I've played, and that's fosters a really good, strong sense of community. I've always felt that people were pretty okay and pretty eager to help when I had questions. I didn't really get a lot of like talking down to me or anything like that. The game is, and I think part of that is because the game is so tough and was so tough that people kind of just had to band together to try to power through it. And that's definitely why the three of us still talk and still play the game. I mean, well, Allison, you don't play 11 anymore, but we're still very much in touch. And, I think of all the really cool people that we've met through our link shell, over the years. And I really do feel that if I go to travel to certain places, like I've got some friends that I can possibly drop in on and, from, Canada and England and New York and California, and that's just like a really amazing thing to me.
Well, that's also based on technology. I mean, that was one thing my mom had mentioned to me when I went to go visit her was because, I was talking to my friends on Final Fantasy through Skype, and she told me, she's like, wow, that's just so foreign to me because, you're talking to someone way across the United States like you're sitting right in front of them. It's cool that way.
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day especially if you do like video calls on Skype, like that's the freaking future. Like when you look at like science fiction movies from like the 80s and even early 90s, like the whole big thing was, video phones and stuff like that. And like now we don't even think about it. It's like, oh yeah, that's just, yeah, whatever. It's no big deal. But, for a while that was like the new, like, that was like the thing that wasn't attainable, in technology and stuff like that.
And Skype just makes doing missions 10 times easier. You can talk to each other instead of spending an hour typing out what you need to do to 6 different people.
Yeah, I've always been kind of an antisocial gamer, though. Like, even with Final Fantasy, like, it's rare that I want to, like, actually, I think, talk to most of my friends on the game. I think I prefer typing most of the time. With the exception of, like a few special people. And I think it goes without saying, if you haven't figured it out by now, but, like, obviously me and Shanna, we know each other personally, but we have not met you, Allison, in person. It's something that I think we would love to do one day, but I think that's really cool that we're still really close friends and we still get along really well and we still talk pretty often. But, that's the beauty of these games, is that you get to know people really well that you may or may not ever meet in the real world.
Yeah, I think it's pretty important for me just because, like, going out to college, it's like a whole support base that I can use that I know will not go away just because of distance.
Yeah.
Because, like, my friends at home, like, I'm really close to them, but I've never actually tested that distance limitation.
Yeah, and we've always been distant, so, like, you still have this annoying voice in your ear, so to speak, like, bugging you every now and then, and it's not really any different than it was when you were playing with me.
Glomping you every, 2 weeks or so. And for those of you that don't know what a glomp is, it's just a really excited hug.
Preferably spine-breaking.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, that's a really special part of MMOs to me, and Final Fantasy XI in specifics is that strong community. And, I think, especially my fondest memories of that game, for me is definitely our time with the HQ Kings Link Shell, which, as far as Link Shells go, it ran for a really long time. A lot of shells will get formed and then, within a few months, like, people start to drift away. That's definitely what happened with my first Link Shell back with my first character. I created, I forgot to mention this, but when I started to, get into 11, when I started to decide that I was actually going to buy this game, those little Tarus that I thought looked like dumb Pikachus morphed with, Ewoks ended up being like the coolest characters to me. And I got this idea of having a 2-foot tall ninja because I thought that would just be a really awesome thing. So my first character was a Taru, and he was named Ricky Taru, which is a play on a character from the PlayStation game Tenchu. But my first Link Shell with him was an all Taru Link Shell because we were very racist. So we were very racist, and it was just all little Tarus, and it was a really fun group. But again, it's one of those things where, I think the Link Shell leader kind of just vanished, and so the shell couldn't grow anymore because you need the leader in order to make new pearls. And, so it just kind of dissipated over time. But HQ Kings was something that went on for a really long time, and we just had like a bunch of really crazy characters in there. I think
we were the #1 Link Shell on Seraph server for probably about a year and a half.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Until other people started being mean and
oh, the drama.
Pushing us aside, and drama.
Yeah, well, tons of drama in MMOs, which is also a lot of fun, where you have like people that kind of have a difference of opinion and splinter off from the main shell and create their own and try to cannibalize the original shell to get their favorite people into the new one. But Allison, I think you had a good nickname for our particular brand of crazy.
What was it? Remind me?
The short bus.
Oh, yes, the short bus. Yeah. So it was a running joke that I was driving the short bus at the time. I had no driver's license, so it was particularly dangerous. Probably still pretty dangerous. But I guess that kind of segues into what you wanted to talk about with Ithacan.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to preface it, we had like a really interesting group of people for a while, and we would do this thing. It was always like, I think 10 o'clock every evening, it would go into Link Shell After Dark, where it just got filthy because we had like a lot of randy women in our Link Shell. And guys, if you're listening to this and you wonder like where all the gamer girls are, they're playing MMOs. So, get in there because you can meet some really cool women. But yeah, we would get into some really crazy talk. Armor would be discarded. Hot tubs were involved.
I still duct tape certain Link Shell members every now and then.
Yeah, and that you can take that every way that you want. But yeah, and going back to Ethicant, who, as I said, we found out that he was nearing 50 when we first started playing with him, and we actually were there to celebrate his 50th birthday and everything. He was a dirty old man. Like, he loved Link Shell After Dark, and he was like one of the coolest people that I've ever encountered in the, online anywhere. Like, not just in gaming, but just in general. And we used to have like some really deep conversations late at night, but also he was just this pervy dude who could turn anything into an innuendo. I loved him. Like, he taught me so much about just making everything naughty.
And being dirty yourself.
Nice. Yes. So I aspire to be like him when I'm in my 50s. Like, just a really cool, dirty old man. But yeah, the reason that I thought that he was so young when we first started playing, I mean, he was a very boisterous guy anyway, but he would like go away from his keyboard like really, really often. And I just figured that his mom was like having him do chores or stuff like that. But it turned out that he was actually taking his medication because, Ethicant was very ill, and that's why he played the game so much, because he didn't really work all that much, or I guess he might not have worked at all at that point.
I think he was bedridden for a while.
Yeah. Well, regardless, we knew that Ethicant was not well, and there would be times when he would go away for a while, and we'd be wondering about him, and we definitely had a few, Link Shell members who knew him outside of game, as far as like they kept in contact with him like through phone or Facebook and stuff like that. So they'd try to get details about what was going on with him. But, unfortunately, he passed away. And for me, that was probably the first time that I had to deal with that, because I'm still young enough to where I haven't really had people close to me die. And it was just a really rough time for all of us. I mean, he was just such a great guy and had brought a lot of life to the shell. And, I'll never forget when we all got together. And Allison, you want to take it from here about, how we got together and kind of, it wasn't a funeral service, but.
It pretty much was a funeral service. We all went up to the top of, was it Horleus Peak or something? Which is a really cool area up in one of the strongholds for beastmen, which is getting a little dorky, but it has like this big lake, and it was overlooked by the moon, and we all sat in a circle, and we all just said a few words about Ethicant. And what I was mentioning earlier is that in my speech I said that I would always be saving him a seat from the HQ King's short bus.
Yeah. And I'll never forget. I mean, it wasn't a lot of us. I mean, a lot of us had moved on by that point, but it was a good like 10 or 12 people. And
yeah.
I remember setting off fireworks, and like we tried to keep it light, because Ethicant was, even up to the end, he was still like really, really playing around and stuff like that. And I don't know. It was something that you can't get in other communities. Like, I know Rob, who co-hosts the show with me, like he talks a lot about the friendships that he's made through Halo and stuff like that. And that's all well and good, but I don't know if you can really get the same level of attachment to someone as you do when you're playing something like this, where you're on at all hours of the night and you're just like chatting about random stuff and, just whatever comes to mind. And, yeah, he was a good friend of mine, and I'll never forget him. And I just, I definitely want to take some time to talk about that, because I think it's important that he be remembered, but also that people understand, like, just how close-knit people can become in games like this. So, we'll miss you, Ethicant.
Yeah, I think that also adds another layer to the game, whereas in single-player games, you're just playing to get through the storyline, but with MMOs, there's that whole social aspect that just adds another complexity to it. You're not always just doing things for the sake of the game.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think part of the reason that we went up to Horlias Peak was because, again, with the Link Shell After Dark stuff, you know, that's where, like, Epicin would hop into there's, like, kind of a hot springs there, and he'd hang out there with a lot of the, ladies, just, you know, talking and chatting and doing who knows what else. Listeners, MMOs are filthy, filthy places. At any given point, there are all sorts of filthy, you know, explicit conversations going on between, you know, 1 or 2 people or 5 people or what have you.
There have been misspelled things that have come across Link Shell that you definitely have you saying, oh my.
Yeah. That's always the worst in games like that, when you don't hit the right person for a really, explicit or personal thing, and then it's just out there for everybody to see. But that's also part of the fun. So yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about Final Fantasy XI, but, you know, this show is ostensibly also about just MMORPGs as a whole, and I'm just wondering if either of you ladies have tried any of the others, or if you've just kind of stuck to the Final Fantasy realm.
I've played World of Warcraft very briefly. I didn't like it much. They're a lot more immature on that game than Final Fantasy. Sorry, WoW players, but it's true.
Was that the only reason? Like, I mean, did the gameplay not do anything for you, or?
I wasn't impressed. It was way too easy.
Allison, what about you?
I played Star Wars: The Old Republic for like 2 weeks, and I didn't get very far. I played it because one of my other friends from Final Fantasy XI wanted me to play because he was bored. I didn't really get into it, like I said. I also tried Terra for like a week, and most of that week was downloading the game because at college my bandwidth is terrible. But I didn't feel like paying for it because I didn't really get into that one either. So I guess after that, mostly just 14.
Okay, yeah. I've dabbled in a few of them. I've played. I mean, WoW is like the elephant in the room, right? Because that's the most popular one. But I think, to your point, Shanna, like that's something that I encountered where the game just kind of felt too damn easy. Like after fighting for every little scrap in Final Fantasy XI, and I need to make this perfectly clear. Like, I've played the game for almost 10 years, but I've probably only like experienced a good like 20% of what that game has to offer, because it's just massive, and the time commitment is so huge to really get to that really like good stuff. I mean, you know, it took me
6 years.
Yeah, was it 6 years to get? Yeah, 6 years to get to level 75, which is not even the max level anymore. Like, I'm still not max level because they moved it up to 99.
I go connect. My real friends are online, fighting to the death. Mom's banging on my door, come eat your eggs and bacon. Mom, you're messing me up, you're like Leroy Jenkins. I get straight dedication, you can call it crazy. You talking stuff, man, why'd you come and play? I'm going 22 hours, who you calling lazy? I'm phoning noobs at PvP, and my level's past 80. Wow, can't nobody mess with me now. I'm on a quest with my real getting wild. It's my crowd, and I'm proud. Screw you, I'm down. Shut your mouth, I'm playing WoW.
So yeah, I mean, WoW was definitely, you know, a little bit too easy for me. I really appreciate some of the things that it does with, you know, it's carrot on a stick is really nice because it's always leading you to that next little thing. So they're very seductive in the way that they can get you to go a little bit further, because you're like only, you know, this much away from a new level and a new ability, or you're only this far away from a new mount, or you're about to get an achievement, or what have you. Like, they're very good about slowly, like, leading you out further and further into the world. But, going back to community, like, I didn't feel any need to try to interact with people at all in that game, because it felt like a game that I could just play by myself. Like, to me, it felt just like a really big, single player game. And I did play with my girlfriend at the time for a little bit, and that was fun. But as far as like interacting with like the other players and stuff, like the only time that I really had that, I was in a guild for like a hot second, but I guess if you don't log in like, regularly, like, you just automatically get booted.
That's not cool.
And that was alright, but it was really more of, like, they weren't really talking to each other. Like, it was mainly just when someone would get an achievement or level up, you know, it's the normal grats. And that was about it. You know, and then you're, you know, very immature, like you said, Shanna, like, very immature talk when you're in the cities and stuff where it's...
Every time I started that game, like, within seconds, no matter what, PvP players would be like, accept my invite, so I can kick your ass. I'm like, no.
Yeah. It was really funny, when I was playing with my girlfriend one day, she unwittingly was, the party, or the recipient of a dude, like, totally, like, hitting on her, but I had to explain to her what had just happened. But she was like, oh, that guy was really nice. I was like, yeah, he was hitting on you. She's like, what? It's like, yeah, that's a thing.
That's the best thing about getting hit on. Well, and sort of. I mean, depends on how hardcore they're hitting on you. I mean, you get free stuff.
Yeah, I need to start a female character when I move on to Final Fantasy XIV, because you ladies get so much free stuff. It's not even funny.
I don't know about you, but I don't get that much free stuff. People think I'm a guy.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, when I started playing Final Fantasy, oh my god. I didn't have to buy things for a good 6 months.
Well, to be fair, Shanna is very obviously a woman when she plays that game.
I am very flirty, too.
But, yeah, I mean, I guess I could see you, Allison, like, you're more snarky than necessarily, like, you know, for lack of a better term, girly, so, I guess, like...
And I'm pretty tomboyish on the video games.
Yeah. But yeah, so, you know, I didn't play WoW for too long, and I did dabble in, the Old Republic for a little bit. I think I played it for about a month. And that was more of just getting, like, wrapped up into the launch hype, and just really wanted to try it, and it was cool. Like, I enjoyed the storyline parts of it, but again, just like WoW, I felt like it was more just a really cool, really massive single-player game, because I didn't really, again, feel the need to really partner up with anybody, because you can do most of the stuff by yourself. So yeah, I just keep on coming back to Final Fantasy XI. It's one of those things, and writing the retrospective, which was a undertaking of months on my part, and a lot of research and stuff, but of all the games that I wanted to replay, and that's the thing about when you start looking back at all these Final Fantasy games, it's like, oh man, remember this part of this game and this part of that game? Like, I'd love to see that again. But when I was starting to do the Final Fantasy XI part for the PS2 years, just brought back this flood of really good memories, and I was like, kind of want to get back in there. But, you know, I get at the point now where, like, my friends are so far ahead of me, and it's really hard to get anything done unless I'm with them. And as far as, like, when Shanna plays is when I'm usually at work or doing something else, so it's very difficult to actually get together to play. So I had started a new character at one point and just kind of tooled around and got him to level 25 on 2 different jobs, and he's kind of sitting there waiting for me to come back. Yeah, that's Final Fantasy XI. But, you know, Final Fantasy XIV is obviously the new hotness, or at least they wanted it to be the new hotness, and things didn't work out that way for them at all. And Allison, you're the expert on Final Fantasy XIV, but before we go into your experience, I did pick up the game for PC, about 5 months after it launched. And, Final Fantasy XIV is almost, notorious for how badly it reviewed and how poor its launch was. And I probably, I can't really say much about the game. I only played it probably for about 15 hours across like 2 different characters. But what I saw was a really gorgeous game with very empty, boring areas and like a combat system that was a little bit too clicky for my tastes. Because, Final Fantasy XI and WoW and most MMOs had a auto battle system where you kind of are managing your other skills as your character is automatically attacking, where 14, when it launched, was queuing up a bunch of different attacks and having to keep on doing that throughout every battle. And, I got a few hours in with one character and was like, I'm kind of done clicking. But that's really all I did with it. I'm curious about when you got into it and kind of why you moved on from 11.
So as far as the moving on from 11, I actually decided that with another friend who actually didn't end up joining 14, but we had both decided that there's too much drama in us for 11, and that we wanted to explore a new game, because when Abyssia came out, that was the new thing in 11, but I really just felt that they just took all the old zones and added new monsters and said, go do it again. So I was really kind of bored with that. I was really looking forward to 14 just because I'm kind of a graphics snob with this kind of thing, and 14's graphics are way better than 11's. So I started with 14 in August of 2011. I guess I have a bad habit of not starting games when they come out, but it was really good that I started them because I joined right after patch 18, or 1.18. and auto attack had just been introduced, so they had gone all the way from their release in 2010 to August of 2011 with no auto attack, and so I don't know what they were doing. But I guess I'll kind of go through the patches so you can see kind of like how it's developed. I only wrote down for the main patches. So 18, like I said, was auto attack, and 18A was the ability to set your home point, which is kind of like a big thing in 11, where you have like this home base that you return to every night, and that was kind of just skipped over completely in 14, and I'm really glad they brought it back, because you would never know where you would be returning to in 14. You just like go to this random place, and like, oh, okay, I guess I clicked this earlier. So let's see, 18B is gear decay, which is something else that doesn't occur in 11. Basically, you have, for every piece of gear, you have like a bar that starts at 100%, and as you use the gear, it decays, and when it gets to 0, every stat that's on that piece of gear is negated until you repair it.
That's not cool.
Which is kind of cool, but can be annoying at low levels when you don't have the money or the dark matter to repair the gear.
Now, is this something that they added in or took out from the original?
I don't know about the very first copy of the game, but I think it was in there. I think they're just tweaking it in this patch. It's still in there now.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. 19 is Ifrit, which is the first primal, which is when the game really started to pick up speed because Yoshida is bringing in new fights. And I remember Ifrit was the first primal ever introduced to the game, and it was so hard. People spent literally days, 24/7, just having their link shells thrown at Ifrit over and over until they finally got the strategy down. But, let's see, strongholds as well, so like the Beastmen areas were introduced in patch 19. 20 is King Mogglmog. I don't know if you guys have any experience with that.
What's that?
Basically, it's a big fluffy Moogle King and his little minions. The music sounds exactly like Nightmare Before Christmas.
I want to see a Moogle King.
Let's see. Patch 20A was when they overhauled the wards, which was like a nightmare in 14.
This was the thing where, like the markets, right? Like, was it that section of the game?
What was that?
Like the market system?
Yeah, basically in 11 you had the auction house, which which was completely just gotten rid of in 14. You have like 15 or so little areas, and each area would be like devoted to something, selling something different, like food or clothing for different level ranges. So you get a retainer character from the Adventurers Guild, and you can put it up in a ward, and it can hold your items and sell your stuff for you. So you don't actually have to put it on the auction house, you put it on your retainer, and your retainer sells it from there. What they didn't realize was when they implemented this system, that in order to buy something, you have to go to the retainer. And they didn't have a system for buying it directly from the interface. So you literally have to zone into the ward, find the retainer, which is nestled in between like 300 other retainers, and there's like huge problems with loading all the retainers at once. You have to like hop around till things load for you, and you had to like click the retainer to even see what it has on it. It was terrible.
I remember, like when I was playing it, like it was pretty much impossible to even search for items. You just kind of had to do a luck of the draw type thing, where let me see what this guy has, and that's not anything that I can use, so let me move on to the next one.
Yeah, they finally added in like a search feature and buying directly from the interface, so you don't actually have to go to the retainer. So I was really happy when they started to reform that. And then they added in also a feature that lets you buy HQ items or materia items. So, let's see. 1.21 was the biggest patch, which was pretty much when the game kind of came to life. I guess over like 250 items were added, and this is when jobs came in. I don't know if you want me to go into the distinctions here.
Yeah, because at the beginning, it was more of a free-form type thing, right? Like, you basically had, like your class was based on your equipment at the time, but you could, like, kind of freely swap between them, if I remember correctly?
The way that it worked is, which I really liked about 14 that wasn't 11, when you're on a class, you can use any ability that you've learned on any other class. So if I was on Lancer, I could use Cure from my White Mage if I had White Mage leveled. But when I wanted to do, like a White Mage weapon, that's not allowed. You can only use the class weapon. So I'd have to use a Lance on Lancer, but I could cast Cure if I wanted to. Now, if you're going to do a job, you get other abilities that Lancer wouldn't get. Like, Dragoon is the job for Lancer. You have to go to Lancer at level 30, and then you can unlock Dragoon. So Dragoon gets abilities like Dragonfire Dive is the 2-hour, which is some other than an 11. I don't know how much you want me to go into detail with this kind of thing, but basically you get all kinds of new abilities that you can use only on Dragoon, and you can only use selected abilities from other classes. So it's kind of like the class is more of a jack of all trades, whereas the job is more focused towards one target, and they're more usable in a party setting, whereas a class is more like if you're soloing something and you need a lot of different abilities to keep you alive.
Oh, okay. So before they wrapped up the game, getting ready for A Realm Reborn, did you notice people kind of sticking to the original classes, or did people pretty much, like, by and large, navigate or gravitate over towards the new jobs?
It's pretty much based on which class you're going to do, because for some classes there's no point in not doing the job. Like for White Mage, for instance, White Mage is more, just cures and regen, so everything that a White Mage needs, you have on White Mage. You don't need other abilities from other classes, so you don't really need to use the Conjurer class. You can just go right to White Mage. But for classes like, I guess Archer is a pretty good example. Archer, the job is Bard, and Archer has a lot of, buffs from other jobs that it can use, so that it would, boost its attacks that you can't necessarily use on Bard, but you can use on Archer. So it's just based on situation and which class is more applicable for, the party setup that you're going to use.
So it sounds like it was a lot more flexible with that system in place.
Yeah, it's really flexible. Basically, you just eliminated the sub-job thing that you had in 11, and you added in the jobs for 14.
Cool.
Right, back to patches. 1.22 is Garuda, which is, the most obnoxious fight ever. I don't know if you guys have seen the videos or anything, but it's terrible.
Mm-mm.
I guess that was the last really big patch. Like, little things were added after that, but mostly it was focused on Dalamud and that whole, resurrection thing.
Sly and sweet, he'll tickle your nose, then tickle your feet. Jolly Gooey's eye will follow his clean, he'll point and arrows straight
Paid with fire, thumbs up burning on her pyre.
See, your life's a bloody thing, to sing a little song and dance a little jig.
Okay, so yeah, like, my thing, just as a casual observer and someone who played the game for a little bit, it seemed like Final Fantasy XIV was kind of developed in a vacuum because, obviously Final Fantasy XI came out right before WoW, so you can't really blame them for not having some of the stuff that WoW did, at least initially. But 14 seemed to completely disregard any of the improvements that had been made to 11 over all those years. Not to mention the improvements that have been made to the MMO genre as a whole by other games. And it's just kind of this big head-scratching thing, like, for me and other people, where it's like, what were you guys doing? Like, I know this was kind of fast-tracked to release, but even so, like, a lot of fundamental stuff is missing, like the auction house. It's a huge thing.
So many things that are missing. But Yoshida actually, Yoshida is the new director for 2.0. He actually referenced that in one of his recent talks. He said that the old director really focused on making a game that was nothing like 11, and what they got was kind of something that wasn't much of anything. So what Yoshida tried to do is pull in the good aspects from WoW and from, I guess, Rift and all those other games that had already found a really big player market, and he tried to implement some of the things that, 11 didn't have, like the guided quest progression that I really found annoying in 11 is not the case in 14. They really guide you to what they want you to do.
Oh, that's good news.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
One of my biggest frustrations on 11 is talking to somebody or zoning into an area and getting a cutscene for some quest that I had started like 50 hours ago, and having no clue as to what quest that's in relation to because it doesn't tell you. And the quest log never updates, so it's just like I would have to go online to a different site, like Alakazam or something, to find out. Well, what was that for? Like, what am I doing? Like, should I keep following that thread, or is that a thread, or what's going on there?
Yeah, you talk to an NPC 1 year, and then like a year later, you'll find the next step in the quest, and you're like, oh wait, what did I have to do next? What was this point about?
Or you have cutscenes in the same zone and get the wrong cutscene for the wrong mission and think you have it for the one you want, and that wasn't the case.
Yeah, so 14 had problems, but Allison, you thoroughly enjoyed yourself. I mean, you put in quite a bit of time with 14 before they shut down the servers to get ready for the upgrade.
How much fun?
I had a great time.
How much fun was it to make your Mithra?
It was pretty good. I really enjoyed the character creation, which is something I think you guys are really going to like in 2.0. In 11, you just had to choose from like 6 character faces and like small, medium, or large. But it's really customizable in 14. You can do separate eye colors, you can do scars and makeup and lip color, and there's like 6 different noses and eye shapes, and like really it's an in-depth character creator, so you feel like your character is unique. Yeah,
see, that stuff really speaks to me because it was pretty frustrating on 11 to see the exact same character, especially if they're the same job as you, just like, that's me, like that's same armor, same hairdo, same everything, but part of that's just a limitation of the fact that it was a game developed for the PS2 originally. But yeah, so what we're getting towards is, and Allison has mentioned it with the 2.0, they basically scrapped most of 14 and said, we're doing this right, we're going to redo it. And originally they were calling it Final Fantasy 2.0. Later on down the road, they changed the name to Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn. which seems to be like they're kind of doing like the Cataclysm thing on WoW, where they're just completely shaking up the world and using that as an excuse to redesign a lot of the systems from the ground up. And Allison, you were lucky enough to get to play the alpha version of this, and I don't know how much detail you can go into, but I've been chomping at the bit to ask you what it's like and what your experience is compared to the original 14, which again you did enjoy, but there were definitely some problems with that game.
Yeah, so I guess a lot of people were mad that they didn't get into alpha, and there were a lot of complaints, but the alpha itself is very restricted. You're restricted to Gridania, which is one of the city-states, and a couple of areas surrounding it, and they put a lot of high-level things around there so that you couldn't really explore. They wanted it to mostly be a stress test, which they emphasized a lot. So we're restricted to level 20. You could use like 3 or 4 classes, tops, and most of those were crafters. So, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot to do, but honestly, the world was beautiful. It totally made up for everything. One of the biggest complaints in 14.1.0 was that the environments were very cookie cutter. You could go and you would see the same hill 5 times if you just kept running in a straight line. So they completely redid everything. I could not recognize the areas outside Gridania at all. It was really cool because they turned it into this gigantic forest. There's like overturned logs and waterfalls. It's just gorgeous.
Yeah, the game, like you sent me some screenshots and it looks beautiful. And 14 already looked good, but A Realm Reborn just looks unbelievable. And I know they definitely bumped up the create a character mode. It seems like there's a lot more options there, even on top of what was already there. And I know they changed a lot with like the user interface and abilities and stuff. Like, can you speak to that at all? Like, did it feel weird, adjusting to that, or was it still kind of like reminiscent of what you've been using in 14?
Well, it's really hard to say because, like I said, we were restricted to level 20. So at that point, it's kind of hard to tell what the battle system will be like at 50, because your abilities are pretty limited. Something I didn't really like is that they kind of scrapped the battle system that they had rebuilt for the ending of Final Fantasy XIV 1.0. They had rebuilt this awesome fighting system, and we were all really, really happy with it. And then they kind of just threw it away for Alpha. I'm not sure if they're bringing it back or not, but a lot of the abilities were new. So, I mean, it kind of felt like we were relearning everything, which I didn't really like because it was kind of hard to get back into the swing of things. It kind of felt like I was just, jamming the same button over and over. So I can't really speak for the battle system at level 50. I'm really excited for beta to get to try it.
Cool. Shanna, you have any questions for Allison on features? Because you're completely like in the dark on 14. You haven't really even seen the original version.
Briefly, you let me create a character on your account, but that's about it.
That's right.
Just, I don't know. I want to create characters. I could pay $15 a month to just create characters all day.
Don't tell them that. They'll do it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's also interesting that, Final Fantasy XI and 14 are still, paid subscription games, which is kind of going by the wayside these days with MMOs, but, Square Enix just recently stated that, 11 is actually their most profitable game of all time as far as the Final Fantasy series. So I don't think that's going to be changing anytime soon. Did you get to do any of the crafting or anything like that, Allison?
Yeah, I did try it because I have a lot of crafters leveled in 1.0, so I wanted to make sure it was still pretty good. They did make crafting a little bit easier. Getting a high-quality item was a little bit easier than it was in 1.0, which I'm not exactly super thrilled about because I put a lot of effort into making high-quality items in 1.0. But I'm pretty excited that, the crafting system seems easy to learn, and gathering as well. I wasn't completely happy with gathering because it seems a little easy for me, but I'm sure that, people that are hardcore gatherers will say that it's much better than the old system because you can choose exactly what you want to gather, whereas, with 11 and 14 1.0, it's kind of a crapshoot. You kind of hit enter and you hope for the best.
Right.
So I guess eliminating the little mini game for the gathering is kind of a double-edged sword.
Interesting. Now, as far as like improvements they're making, I don't know if this was in the alpha, but are they adding in some of that major stuff that felt was missing from it originally, like stuff like the auction house, which was like a no-brainer? Like is that in there now, or have they said that they're going to be implementing it?
I don't think they're putting in an auction house, but they're revamping the wards completely. They actually haven't. They've kept it under wraps, so I don't really know how it's going to work. They said that we should look forward to that, so I'm pretty excited.
Okay. And I noticed that, like, just from screenshots and stuff, because I haven't really seen any video of the alpha version, but it seems like a lot of the interface and font stuff is taken straight from, like, Final Fantasy XII. So I was curious, like, when you're targeting enemies and stuff, like, does this little, like, ray of light come between your character and the thing you're targeting? Because that was a big, like, selling point, or that was a big thing in Final Fantasy XII, was to show, like, who was targeting who.
No, there's no little ray of light. There's a big icon over what you're going to target. I'm not sure if they're going to get rid of that or not, but we'll see how it turns out in beta. I actually don't really like the targeting system because it's very mouse dependent as it is now. They're adding in a second control system for people that want to use gamepads and that kind of thing, which wasn't implemented for alpha test because it was mainly a stress test, like I said. So I'm really looking forward to testing out the control system because the mouse is really aggravating for me. Right, yeah.
I definitely got used to the whole controller with the keyboard setup for the console where, I do everything with the controller, but then use the keyboard for typing and using macros and stuff like that.
I can't even function 11 with a keyboard.
So, yeah, and I think, if I read correctly, like, the beta applications are starting today for PlayStation 3 and PC. So, listeners, if you're interested, especially PS3 owners, like, they never got around to doing the beta test for the original Final Fantasy XIV on the PS3 because they didn't want to release it because they felt so ashamed of what they had released. So that's definitely something to take a look at. I'm excited. Final Fantasy A Realm Reborn is actually one of my most anticipated games of the year because I thought 14 had a lot of potential and I thought that they squandered all of it, but the fact that they're going back and pretty much remaking the game is kind of unheard of, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it comes out once it's finally all said and done.
Do you have to make macros and stuff for 14?
I haven't yet. I know that macros were a pretty big thing in 11, but I actually didn't use them at all in 1.0, except for changing gear. They've kind of like revamped the whole changing gear thing as well, so I'm not sure if you're going to be really heavily using macros. It's kind of your player style. It's up to you.
That's cool. I mean, it seems like they're trying to go for a more flexible user experience where you can kind of play the game as you want, which is something that I would have liked to see more in 11, because the way that 11 was structured originally, like when it was first came out before they added the Abyssia expansions, was it was a very structured party system where you had to have these certain roles in the party in order to succeed. And my thing was that in the older Final Fantasy games, you could succeed with a whole party of white mages if you wanted, or a whole party of warriors. You just had to play differently, where, 11, you really can't do that except in very specific, situations. And it seems like possibly 14 will give you a little more flexibility in that realm. At least I'm hoping so.
Yeah, I guess the main reason I didn't really use macros is because, unlike 11, where you have to use the menu to get through to have any weapon skills, all your abilities are mapped on the keyboard from 1 to equal sign. So if you want to use an ability, you just tap that key. So it's pretty easy to just get into the swing of battle, and you can combo right from your keyboard, which is really nice without having to set anything up.
Yeah, I did note. Yeah, that's a good point actually, because with 11, you didn't really have, unless you were a spellcaster, you didn't really have a ton of abilities compared to games like WoW or Old Republic. Like I play a Dark Knight, and as far as like my actual skills, it's probably like maybe 5 at my disposal, and then I have some spells. But, because of that, it's not, and they didn't have it mapped to the keyboard, so those macros were super important. But, going to that more traditional, 1 through 10 type of thing where you just hit the button, that should make things way snappier and better for teamwork and stuff like that.
Yeah, your spells actually get mapped to the keys as well, so it's pretty easy.
Cool.
I got pissed with this SE a while back because they did an update and they rearranged my spell list, and I had to rearrange my black mage, my white mage, my red mage, and my scholar. It was a pain in the ass.
Didn't they add new visual icons to them all as well?
Well, that's not a problem. That's fine. That actually helps me sort through all my spells. But when I'm on white mage and subbing black mage, that was a pain in the ass, especially when I was right in the middle of fighting an NM when I found out they did that, so I wasn't happy.
And for you listeners out there at home, MMOs have their own vocabulary, so it's almost like learning a new language. So if you didn't understand that, there are plenty of dictionaries that you can check out online for all of the terminology and stuff like that. We're not going to get into it, but that's something that I've always really enjoyed about MMOs is just the language that springs up around them. Some of it still confuses me, and I've been doing this for a long time.
8 years ago, I didn't know what an emote was. Now I emote all the time.
Naughty emotes.
You have no idea.
All right, Allison, any closing thoughts on A Realm Reborn?
Mostly the environments. I'm really looking forward to exploring the world all over again, because that was really awesome for me. Even with the old cookie cutter 1.0 environments, I really love just going around and exploring the world with friends. Those are some of my best memories from 14, so I'm looking forward to doing that all over again.
Cool. Yeah, just for myself, I'm excited to finally get to play it on the PlayStation 3, because that's my preferred method of playing games like this. I don't really like sitting in my computer for long periods of time, but also, Final Fantasy, it worked on my desktop, but that one went kablooey, and it never really worked with my laptop. There was something about the way that my integrated, video card, or graphics card rather, worked with, Final Fantasy XIV, where they didn't like each other, and it would shut down after, a minute or two. So I couldn't even get past the intro cutscene for any character, because we were trying to play together, Allison, and it just wasn't happening. So I'm looking forward to finally having a stable environment on the PS3 to finally really jump into that game and see what it has to offer.
They need to release it on the Xbox 360.
Yes.
Something else with the graphics that you're mentioning. The thing about 1.0 that I kind of found a little annoying was that when you tried to turn down the graphics for a lower level computer, they got really, really bad really fast. But with 2.0, they kind of fixed that problem completely. Even on the lowest settings, the game looks amazing. So they kind of turn down textures in ways you wouldn't really notice, but it kind of makes it a lot easier on your computer. So I found that really interesting.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because I know that they had said in interviews that the PS3 version was going to take a little bit of hit in quality, but it probably won't be all that noticeable, because it seems like the engine scales better towards different systems and stuff like that. So, and the stuff that I've seen from the PS3 just looks gorgeous. So I can't wait. But yeah, I think that's probably going to do it for this special edition of Nerds Without Pants. I'd also like to state that, since we had some ladies in the house, they were able to keep their pants on, because when the normal dudes on Nerds Without Pants have their pants off, it's funny, but when we ask women to do it, it's just creepy. So, just wanted to put that out there that, this is actually a Nerds with Pants edition of the podcast. But, yeah, that's going to do it. Allison, thank you very much for, stopping by and letting us know about Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And Shanna, thank you for coming on and reminiscing with me on 11.
Sure, no problem.
And you can listen to more episodes of Nerds Without Pants over at pixelbit.com or on iTunes. We also have a lot more podcasts like Pixel Talk, Press Start to Continue, and Backloggers Anonymous, which we're about to get started on Darksiders soon. So tune in for that. Allison and Shanna aren't really on Twitter or anything like that, but you can find me at Julian_Titus. Please rate and review the podcast on iTunes if you enjoyed. And I hope that this has kind of given you a little glimpse into the world of MMORPGs and why we love them so much even after all this time, and maybe got you interested in checking one or two out. And I'd say it's still worth it to get into Final Fantasy XI if you've never played it. It's more user friendly than it's ever been, and of course Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, when that launches, should be pretty cool.
It's gonna be good. Play with me.
So that's going to do it. For myself, Allison, and Shanna, thank you for listening, and keep it pantsless, Internet.
What's